Have you ever wondered why airplanes store fuel in their wings? Here's what's strange about that. You're sitting in a metal tube, 35,000 feet in the air, traveling at 900 kilometers per hour, and the thing keeping you alive is stored not in a safe, armored tank beneath you, but in the thin, flexible wings bending up and down outside your window. A Boeing 747 carries up to 238,000 liters of jet fuel, enough to fill over 3,000 bathtubs, all of it sloshing around inside hollow wing cavities that flex, vibrate, and twist with every air pocket you hit. That sounds insane. That sounds like the worst possible place to store highly flammable liquid. But here's the thing. It's actually the only place that makes sense. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at a plane wing the same way again. Let's put that fuel weight into perspective first, because the numbers are genuinely staggering. That 238,000 liters in a fully loaded 747, it weighs around 190,000 kilograms. That's heavier than 25 fully grown African elephants. That's heavier than a loaded freight locomotive. And you're asking a machine to lift that, plus 400 passengers, their luggage, the seats, the engines, the entire airframe, off the ground using nothing but the shape of a wing cutting through air. Before the fuel even burns, the plane weighs so much that if you drove it onto a highway scale, it would shatter the pavement. This machine shouldn't work. And yet, every single day, over 100,000 flights take off around the world without a second thought. But storing fuel in wings wasn't always the plan. In the early days of aviation, think the 1920s and 30s, fuel was stored in the fuselage, the main body of the plane, close to the engine. Simple logic, keep the fuel near where it burns. Early aircraft like the Ford Trimotor used fuselage tanks because the wings back then were thin, fabric-covered, and barely strong enough to hold themselves together, let alone thousands of liters of liquid. But then World War II changed everything. Aircraft engineers were building faster, heavier, longer-range bombers and fighters, and they ran into a brutal physics problem. The more fuel you loaded into the fuselage, the more the aircraft became dangerously unstable in the air. The weight was all in one place, the center and the wings. Now massive, thick metal structures were essentially empty. Engineers at companies like Boeing and Douglas started asking a radical question. What if the wings weren't just for flying, but for storing? What if we filled them up? To understand why that idea was genius, you need to understand one simple principle. In engineering, where you put weight matters as much as how much weight you carry. Think of it like this. Imagine you're carrying two heavy grocery bags. If you hold both bags right in front of your chest, all the weight pulls down on your spine. You feel every gram of it, and you're constantly fighting to stay balanced. But if you stretch your arms out wide and hold one bag in each hand, suddenly it feels different. The weight is distributed. Your body uses it as a counterbalance. You're more stable, more controlled, and ironically, it's easier to carry the same weight. That's exactly what happened when engineers moved fuel into the wings. Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. A wing in flight isn't rigid. It flexes. On a modern Airbus A380, the wingtips can bend upward by as much as 4 meters during flight. 4 meters. That's not a malfunction. That's physics working exactly as designed. And here's the beautiful part. All that fuel sitting inside the wing is acting as a natural damper. It's absorbing the stress. Picture this. Imagine you have a thin metal ruler and you hold one end and flap it up and down. It bends aggressively, right? Now imagine taping a water balloon along the length of that ruler. Suddenly, the movement is slower, heavier, more controlled. The liquid mass is resisting the rapid flex. That's what wing fuel does. Without it, the wings would experience far more extreme oscillation, a phenomenon engineers call flutter, and flutter, left unchecked, can tear a wing apart in seconds. The fuel isn't just a passenger, it's a structural component. But that's not even the main reason. Here's the one that blows most people's minds. It's about bending moment. During flight, the lift generated by the wings is enormous. It's literally holding up the entire weight of the aircraft. That lift force pushes upward at the wings while gravity pulls the fuselage downward in the center. The result is a massive bending stress right at the wing root, the point where the wing connects to the body of the plane. Engineers measure this force in millions of Newton meters. It's the kind of stress that, without compensation, would require the wing structure to be so thick and heavy that the plane could barely fly. But when you fill the wings with fuel, you're adding downward weight along the wing, which directly counteracts the upward lift force. You're bending the stress curve back towards zero. The fuel is literally fighting the physics that would otherwise destroy the wing. A heavier wing, paradoxically, means a safer, lighter aircraft overall, because it lets engineers build the wing structure thinner and lighter than they otherwise could. Here's something almost nobody realizes. Wing fuel tanks aren't simple hollow boxes. They're formed by the wing's own internal structure. The spars, ribs, and skin panels of the wing literally become the walls of the tank. There's no separate container inserted into the wing. The wing is the tank, and to seal it, engineers coat every interior surface with a special fuel-resistant sealant, applied by technicians who have to physically climb inside the wing to reach every seam and rivet. On a 747, a maintenance worker can stand upright inside the center wing box tank. You have a room inside the wing of a commercial aircraft. That detail never shows up on the boarding pass. Another thing almost no one knows. Modern aircraft don't just vent excess fuel pressure into the air. They route the fuel tank venting through NACA scoops on the wingtips, carefully designed aerodynamic openings that use the airflow itself to maintain the right pressure balance inside the tanks and prevent dangerous vapor buildup. The wing is breathing. The whole time you fly, the wing is quietly breathing around the fuel inside it. So here's what we actually learned. The wings don't store fuel despite being a strange place for it. They store fuel because it's the only place that solves 5 separate engineering problems at once: structural stress, wing flutter, center of gravity, weight distribution, and aerodynamic stability, all simultaneously, all passively, with no moving parts required. Every time you look out the window and see that wing flexing gently in the clouds, you're watching one of the most elegant engineering solutions ever devised. The fuel isn't just sitting there waiting to be burned. It's working. The whole flight, it's working, holding the wing steady, keeping the plane balanced, and quietly making the impossible routine. And the next time someone asks you why planes store fuel in their wings, you'll know. It's not just storage. It's the reason the wing survives the flight at all.